Just take a minute. Look around you. There's history being made. Has been. Will be. How can there not? Just something about those blue skies, high banks, and high speed, all coming together in one perfect race. And it'll be here sooner than you think.
Roll Tide and welcome to this Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover. Great to be with you at our studios in Tuscaloosa as we get set for Alabama against Austin Peay coming up on Saturday. We'll get ready for the show today thanks to this smart board that's been given to us by our friends at RJ Young. They're the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive, a real interactive way to go through everything coming up on the show and our headlines for today. Let's start with what's coming up first. We always hear from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nick Saban. First things first, as he met with the media on Wednesday with a few key injury updates plus a humorous moment as well you'll see from Coach Saban's press conference on Wednesday night. So that'll be first with Coach's checklist. And then we'll visit with Brian Branch. He had the game-winning play essentially for Alabama's defense on the fourth down stop against Ole Miss last Saturday in Oxford. He'll talk about that play plus what Alabama has to do moving forward. Then as always on Thursdays, we're joined by Chris Stewart as he'll preview tonight's edition of Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show, plus talk about some Alabama basketball and football during this very busy week. And also, this past week was Veterans Day, and this will be the first football game in Tuscaloosa after Veterans Day, and the University of Alabama Online, along with the Crimson Tide Sports Network, will be saluting Staff Sergeant Sarah Neal of the United States Air Force. We had a great conversation with her, so you hear that coming up in just a few moments. And then the big picture, we'll talk about Austin Peay for the rest of the show, as we'll first be joined by their Director of Athletics, Gerald Harrison, as well as their play-by-play voice, Brian Rives, for the other booth, giving us a really detailed scouting report on the Governor's football team that's coming to town this Saturday as we go through our headlines. Of course, the Crimson Tide and the Governors will play the final non-conference game of the season. This is actually the first time Alabama's played Austin Peay or played anybody from the ASUN Conference. So we'll look forward to seeing the Governors in town bright and early at Bryant-Denny Stadium. 11 a.m. is the kickoff. Our airtime will be at 8 o'clock coming up from Bryant-Denny. Also, great news for Will Anderson Jr. He won the Nagurski Award last season. He's a finalist for the award this season, so a chance you could see Will Anderson Jr. pick up back-to-back Nagurski Awards, a great honor for Will. Let's talk Tide soccer as the Alabama soccer team is back at home in the NCAA tournament against Portland coming up in the second round at 6 p.m. So a huge matchup coming up. Alabama a season ago won its first ever NCAA tournament game, a victory against Clemson in the first round, fell to BYU in the second round. So if Alabama wins tomorrow, that would mean no matter what else happens, this is the best soccer season in program history in terms of a deep run in the NCAA tournament, already an SEC championship as well for the Crimson Tide. Now, the other matchup on the other side of the bracket, a very good Brown team, the champions of the Ivy League, and then UC Irvine as well. That's going to be a really fun matchup coming up at 1 o'clock. If you're in Tuscaloosa, you are able to attend that at the Alabama Soccer Stadium, and then the winners will meet on Sunday at 1 p.m., what should be a thrilling third-round matchup. And if you can't make it to Tuscaloosa to watch those matches, all of those will be streamed live on ESPN Plus with Haley McDonald on the call, along with, well, somebody else. Me. But we will have soccer coming up this weekend. Talking some other basketball news for the Crimson Tide, a good 10-point win for the Crimson Tide against South Alabama on Tuesday down in Mobile. We'll talk a little bit about that with Chris Stewart coming up in a few minutes, and we'll also talk about the return of Javon Quinterly. That was certainly good to see for the Crimson Tide point guard as he made his way back from the ACL injury a season ago. Tomorrow night, Alabama taking on Jacksonville State, 8 p.m. tip-off. Our radio coverage will start at 7 o'clock against JSU. Women's basketball was on the road last night to Tampa, Florida, and they fell at USF 67-59 despite leading by 6 points at halftime. Really great performance by USF, especially Sammy Puisa's shooting three-pointers, had a career-high 24 points, leading the Bulls to a win. So the first loss of the year for the Crimson Tide, but next up, two big matchups on Monday against Utah and Wednesday against Wake Forest down in the Bahamas at Baha Mar Resort in the Pink Flamingo Championship. Right now, we're going to be talking some football, though, as we'll start with the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nick Saban, as he set the table for what's ahead this week for Alabama as the Crimson Tide prepare for Saturday.
You know, we talk a lot about culture, we talk a lot about identity, but really what makes you sort of motivated, what creates an identity for all of us? You know, we all strive for self-respect. So, but how do we go about doing it? There's a lot of successful people who, really aspire to accomplish certain things. They have goals and aspirations. They know exactly what they have to do it, and they go about every day with a positive attitude and a lot of positive mindset to try to accomplish those things. And when they get to it, they usually have success because they're well prepared. And then a lot of other people need something bad to happen, need to get humiliated before, they really sort of respond because their pride is hurt, their self-respect is hurt, and then they really respond and do well at things. And, it's a life lesson for all of us to choose the first path, and that goes a long way in creating an identity, for you as a person as well as for us as a team. And that's certainly what we're trying to strive for, to finish this season, to play in this game for what we want to accomplish, what we want to do, reestablish the identity that we want in Alabama football. And, that's what we're going to, try to finish and do. And it'll be interesting to see, how players choose to do that. So, I told the players earlier in the week, I said, nobody should be able to come to practice and watch practice and be able to know who we're playing this week. If you're really motivated to do things the right way and you want to go play well, regardless, then nobody would be able to come here and know that who we're playing, because it's how you go about your work, it's what you do, and I think that's the culture that we're trying to create and what we're trying to get our players to understand and try to do. So, and they, I think a lot of them do it well. Some of them are learning lessons on how to do it well.
Austin Peay has a defensive back named Trey Stover, whose father, Nikita Stover, was on your first two teams here. Is it a surreal feeling for you when you come across some second-generation players whose fathers you coached?
Yeah, but that started a long time ago. I coached Mark Ingram's dad. Yeah, it is. But it also makes me aware of how long I've been doing it. But in a good way, in a good way. So yeah, it does. But I actually didn't know that. I knew the name of the player, but I never made the association. Appreciate you telling me that. Well, we'll see. They're kind of day to day in terms of how they're doing and what they're doing, and we won't be able to make that determination until closer to the game.
Crimson Drive driven by NASCAR, and NASCAR is kicking off the 2023 regular season with the iconic Daytona 500. Don't miss the opportunity to experience history as the drivers battle it out in the 65th running of the Great American Race. Purchase your tickets today at Daytona500.com and get ready to experience the biggest race of the year. Well, one of the biggest plays of the year was turned in by Alabama football's Brian Branch on Saturday. The defensive back was key with a deflection that helped lead the incompletion for Ole Miss on fourth down, the final possession of the game for the Rebels, and we talked about that with Brian Branch in a one-on-one conversation. We always have these here on Crimson Drive driven by NASCAR. We were joined by J.C. Latham earlier in the week, and now this week it's Brian Branch talking with us about the great win for the Crimson Tide against Ole Miss. Defensive back Brian Branch, who made the play of the game right at the end on that fourth down stop, first of all against Ole Miss. Just walk us through that play. What was your job on that fourth down play that the Rebels had, and how'd you come up with a big stop?
We were playing clip with two high safeties over the top. It was in trips. They had the number 3 receiver on the ball, and it was only two routes I was thinking in my mind that he couldn't run in that situation. And if it was either a corner or a middle read, just like he did. But if you were in a corner, then I would just pass it to my safety. But he ran the middle read, so I was able to play underneath.
So you're able to make the play just as you're going through all those different things. Obviously, a lot of emotion, high energy in the building. How do you stay calm in moments like that?
Preparation. We practice hard all the time, so I thank God for it, and I was prepared for it. So.
We always hear that Coach Saban during practice is always with the defensive backs and kind of watching as you guys take steps forward. And in what ways is he a really good coach for you all?
A lot of ways. He teaches us a lot of things. He makes us, like I said, practice hard every day. Just the little thing. He makes us focus on the little things, and that's what helps to be a good player. Is just to focus on the little things to improve your game.
How have you seen the secondary take steps forward throughout the year?
Just the way we fight and we've handled adversity all year. The criticism, we still remain with each other. We all fighting for each other. So just improving on little things and each of us doing our own job.
You excited to be back at home at Bryant-Denny Stadium for these next 2 games?
Oh, yes, sir. Most definitely.
What do you like most about home games here? Was there a part of pregame or anything you like the most?
Just seeing the fans, really our fans, instead of seeing the opposing team's fans, helps us, I guess. And just it's home. We all like to be home. So
Certainly do. Well, Brian Branch, congratulations on a great play against Ole Miss at the end of the ballgame. Thank you for joining us today. Roll Tide.
thank you. Roll Tide.
Just take a minute. Look around you. There's history being made. Has been, will be, and it'll be here sooner than you think.
Good to catch up with Brian Branch. Look forward to Alabama against Austin Peay this Saturday. Chris Stewart will once again be on the call for us, filling in for Eli Gold on the network. He also calls basketball for us, men's basketball, and will be filling in for Eli coming up tonight with head coach and the Nick Saban Show at Baumhower's Victory Grill in Tuscaloosa. And as always on Thursdays on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, he joins us to preview everything that's coming up. A very busy schedule for Mr. Chris Stewart. First of all, how was your trip to L.A., Lower Alabama, earlier in the week?
It was good. I shouldn't be surprised or forget after all this time, Roger, but it's always great going down there because you get a chance to see so many Alabama fans and so many people that we see all the time in Tuscaloosa at games that are downright giddy that they get to see the Tide and don't have to drive the 3 to 4 hours, whatever it may be, depending on which route they take to get to Tuscaloosa. So it makes you appreciate them that much more, that they go to the effort that they do so many times out of the year to come see Alabama play in Tuscaloosa. So to see them get a home game, so to speak, is a great, great thing. And when you see the Tide play as well as they did in a really tough environment, because even though there were a ton of Bama fans, it was South Alabama's home game on their campus, and they turned out, especially students. 9 o'clock's a perfect time for them. Old people like me, man, we're sitting there yawning, knocking back coffee, trying to stay awake. But for the kids, that's right their wheelhouse, and they were loud and had a lot of them there.
Well, we were excited to get the win, of course, for the Crimson Tide, but really excited as well about the return of Javon Quinterly, and exciting, Chris, that he's back here in mid-November after we had thought it may be December, maybe January, but here he is back and healthy for the Tide.
Look, it's amazing. The job, first of all, that the medical staff did to do their job, and then the work that he's put in afterwards to get himself in this spot. I mean, I go back to San Diego, Roger, and he goes down, and you go, what an awful way for this kid who's been through so much to have his college career end. And then, of course, it was a rough end for the Bama team as well. But to think that's the last time you're going to see him, to seeing him show up 2-3 months early from what a lot of people thought best case scenario, once it was determined that he was going to come back for another year, really incredible. And so proud of him, so happy for him. The smile on his face in the tunnel before the game as they were going out for their initial warm-ups once they first arrived at the gym. I just talked with Coach Oates, and I saw him in the hallway, and I always get a great greeting from JQ. But I looked at him, I said, "You're going to play, aren't you?" And he grinned. He goes, "I'm going to play." So for him to get a chance to get out there. Now, look, it's great on a personal note. If he looked awful, it still would have been a great thing just to see him on the floor. But thinking about what it means for the basketball team to look up with 4 minutes to go, you're trying to protect the lead. You're trying to be, I don't know if more careful is the correct phrasing, but you're trying to get that game to the finish line, and to look up and you have Mark Sears, a veteran point guard, tough, battle tested, on the floor. Jaden Bradley, you got a young man who's out there who's a 5-star, who coming out of high school that handles the ball as well as anybody. And oh, by the way, here comes the former McDonald's All-American as well, another 5-star who has that thing on a string in Javon Quinterly. It's special to see him out there, and that trio together. That's huge for this club, for them to have that opportunity with those 3 guys. And man, that'll be fun. That'll be fun. Hopefully, a lot of situations like that where that trio is coming in and going, "We dare you, try to get it from us."
Well, we look forward to seeing that again on Friday night against Jacksonville State. We can't wait to see the Crimson Tide football team back in action just a few hours later against Austin Peay coming up on Saturday at Bryant-Denny Stadium. You got to be fired up to get back to Bryant-Denny for these final 2 regular season games.
No question. And look, I've said this many times, but please don't tell Coach I said this. I view games like this a lot differently from some who nationally and even locally tend to bash games against FCS opponents. But I'm a kid, or I was a kid a long, long time ago, who saw his first Alabama football game in person when it was Alabama versus Arkansas State at Legion Field in Birmingham, because that was a game not everybody wanted to see that went to regular games or went to a majority of games. And my dad could buy me a ticket for that game. There was one available. He bought it for me. And when I was 10 years old, I didn't care that it was Arkansas State. To me, it may as well have been the Razorbacks. I was going to see Alabama. I wasn't going to see the opponent. So there are a lot of people who will be at Bryant-Denny Stadium Saturday to see this ball game that have never been there before, or they're bringing their child for the first time. That's special. That's a special thing. It's not for everybody, and I get that. They're going to be, most importantly, they're going to be players that if Bama takes care of business in the first half of that game, there are kids that are going to get snaps in that game that may never see the field otherwise, that they will always be able to carry that with them. They're the guys that practice all the time, that have done things for years that never allow them to maybe run out of that tunnel or to run on that field and participate in a game other than a spring game at Bryant-Denny. That's going to be special for them. And again, I know that doesn't mean everything to everybody, but with also what Alabama has to go through during the regular season in SEC play, and then what most years they face in a playoff, to me, that Alabama doesn't need to apologize for anything when they play a game like this. So for so many people, Saturday will be very special when they take on, I almost said Arkansas State, but Austin Peay in that ball game Saturday.
Starts with an A. You're pretty close.
It does. I was going back to my 10-year-old Chris.
Well, that's good. Well, 10-year-old Chris will be thrilled to know that coming up on Thursday night, he's going to be speaking with the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nick Saban, for Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show. And I'm sure you're looking forward as well to welcoming in Christy Curry and Lauren Sisler to Bombhours.
Absolutely. Lauren's been a friend for a long time and has done so well in her career. Really happy for her and what she's getting to do now with ESPN. And of course, Christy, hard to believe, 10 years now as the head coach of the Alabama women's program, and just signed, as you well know, one of the best classes in school history. That'll be there next year. This year's team, despite the loss at South Florida, is off to a really good start with some great talent and some great things to talk with her about. So between those two ladies and Coach, should be a fun Thursday night at Bombhours.
We're looking forward to it. Chris, thank you so much for your time today on Crimson Drive. Look forward to all the broadcasts coming up over the next few days. Thank you. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, Roger. Thank you.
We look forward to Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show coming to you tonight, 6:30 p.m. from Bombhours Victory Grill in Tuscaloosa. It's a really special Saturday coming up at Bryant-Denny Stadium. This will be our first home game after the Veterans Day holiday from this past week, and UA Online has the Legendary Service Award that they give out once a year. This will be the second time they've given it out, and this year's recipient is from the Airforce Staff Sergeant Sarah Neal, who's going through some graduate work through UA Online, and she had a chance to join us earlier this week to talk about this recognition from UA Online, plus how it has helped her in her Air Force career. Here's our conversation with Sarah Neal, the second recipient of UA Online's Legendary Service Award. And Roll Tide, it's great to see you, Sarah. How's everything going? And congratulations on this honor from University of Alabama Online.
Thank you so much. Everything's going great.
Well, this is the first football game after Veterans Day, so we can't wait to celebrate you at Bryant-Denny Stadium coming up on Saturday. We know you can't be there in person, but we know you have someone very special that will accept the award on your behalf.
Yes, my cousin Ashley Neal, she'll be there in my place. I just had a baby 2 months ago, so unfortunately the trip just wasn't in the books for us, but I will be there in spirit for sure.
Well, we're certainly glad to have Ashlyn with us and, of course, celebrate you this Saturday. And what can you tell us about your military service? We understand you've been in the Air Force for 10 years.
Yes, this is my 9th year going on 10. I love being in the military. I joined as reservist at first just to pay for some schooling. And once I got into the mission at Patrick, which is combat search and rescue, I fell in love with it. And it convinced me to go active duty. And I plan on doing a full 20 and then some.
Well, we're certainly glad to hear that. And we understand you've been very busy as well, kind of even away from some of your military duties. What can you tell us about what you've done in the community?
So last year I helped organize a walk in her shoes. We raised about $4K, and every year our whole base has a base booster club, and we support the Armed Forces 5Ks, and everything we make for these gets donated to the base for Family Day events and for local communities.
That's certainly good to hear about. And of course, you've been very busy, of course, with that going on along with your military service. But how did the University of Alabama Online factor into your overall goals for what you want for your life and career?
So I actually have some family that live in Tuscaloosa, and I've always been a Bama fan. So I toured the campus last year after I finished my bachelor's degree, and I saw someone graduating. It was his daughter, and he was retiring because he was in uniform, and they were taking like their retirement and graduation picture. And for me, I was like, I wonder if Bama is military friendly. So I did some research and I looked at it, and I saw that they had master's programs that were military friendly, and it was a no-brainer from there.
And what has this experience been like for you with UA Online?
It's been really good. The professors have been very willing to work with me and very flexible, especially just having a baby. And we've had 2 hurricanes hit here locally. And when hurricanes hit here, we have a lot of local support that we have to do as a base. So my instructors have been very willing to work with me, and basically whatever I need, whatever help I need, they're willing and flexible, willing to work with me. So it's awesome.
That's great to hear. And again, you mentioned you're getting ready, going on your 10th year, and we understand as well you have a promotion coming up within the Air Force.
I do. I will be putting on Tech Sergeant, hopefully December 1st, as long as all the paperwork goes through. But I am very excited about that as well.
Well, congratulations on that honor. And again, just congratulations on being named the recipient of the Legendary Services Award from the University of Alabama Online. Again, we're thrilled to celebrate you this Saturday as Alabama football takes on Austin Peay. But thank you for your time today. Roll Tide.
Thank you so much. Roll Tide.
Again, a huge congratulations to Staff Sergeant Sarah Neal for that great honor from UA Online. We appreciate her military service with the United States Air Force. As we start to wrap things up a little bit on the show, the next couple of interviews will focus on the opponent for this week, Austin Peay. It'll be the first time that Alabama has played Austin Peay in its history as the Crimson Tide play its final non-conference football game of the season. And to get a better understanding of Austin Peay athletics, we wanted to visit with the director of athletics for Austin Peay, Gerald Harrison, who's had some experience before in the SEC at Tennessee, has also been on the staff at Duke as well before making his way to Clarksville, Tennessee to be the leader of this athletics department. So I think you'll enjoy hearing some insights from Gerald Harrison about Alabama's opponent coming up this week, Austin Peay. Gerald, it's great to see you. How's everything going for Austin Peay as the Governors get ready for their first trip to Tuscaloosa?
Well, thank you. Everything's going great. We're really excited about the opportunity to come to Bryant-Denny Stadium, and our student athletes are excited about that opportunity and the huge challenge that we have. But it's going to be a great day to be a Gov and a great day to be playing football in November.
What can you tell us about this Governors team? Off to a really good start, it seemed like, early in the season, coming into this game with a 7-3 record.
Yeah, no, it's been a great season. We started off really fast. A couple shutouts and shutouts early. I thought we were on a roll. I hit a couple speed bumps, but the team is really dynamic, balanced offense. We pride ourselves on being able to run the ball and throw it. So you got 2,000 yards in passing, 2,000 yards rushing. It comes from a system. Scotty Walden's our head football coach. Scotty's the youngest coach in Division I. He's 30. He just turned 33, and he's got a whole bunch of energy. And our offense looks like it. We kind of go fast, not as fast as our friends to the east over here, but we go pretty fast. And on defense, we're trying to build to stop the run, and we've been pretty successful doing that this season, with ranking in the top 25 in the most defensive categories in FCS.
What can you tell us about the process that led to hiring Scotty Walden? Because for you as the athletic director, that's a huge hire that you have to make pretty early in your time in Clarksville. So what stood out to you about him? What did you like about him from the start?
Well, I fell in love with his energy. Honestly, it was a weird time for us to be hiring, because we're in the COVID pandemic when that came up, and we hired Scotty in November. He was he has experience there at Bryant-Denny. He was at Southern Miss at the time. He's the assistant head coach and offensive coordinator at Southern Miss, and then was the interim head coach after they let go their coach early. And I just watched the way he bounced around and his teams played, and the kids loved him. So I met with him one evening in New Orleans, and it's funny. We were supposed to be there for about an hour. We ended up spending about 4 hours in conversation about 2:00 in the morning. And I knew then that he was going to be my guy. Now, Roger, I'll tell you the funniest thing about this, and Chris Lowe did a story on it for ESPN when it happened. I get back to Clarksville. My phone rings at Scotty Walden. I'm thinking he's calling to tell me he's not interested, didn't want the job or pulled out or something. He said, "Hey, I want to let you know I got back to Hattiesburg and I tested positive for COVID." So I just spent 3 hours in a small room with a guy who just tested positive for COVID. So he had to call to let me know that he probably infected me. Luckily, I was up on my elderberry, so I did okay.
That's quite a story. But yeah, Coach Walden having a lot of success, says the Governors now compete in the A-Sun Conference. I think a lot of Alabama fans, when they first heard about this matchup, just assumed that Austin Peay was still in the Ohio Valley. What can you tell us about the move going from the OVC to the A-Sun?
Well, we made a decision based on really the growth of our university. We have a new president on the job here, and we talked and met, and we wanted to get our universities growing to the south. Our enrollment's growing, everything's going to the south. The OVC was making a decision at this time to go further to the Midwest, and that's not where the population center of this country is. It's growing to the south, and we do a great job recruiting Alabama. We do a great job Georgia, Mississippi, obviously Memphis in that area, and then the state of Florida. So we wanted to be closer to where we're going to recruit. Also, there's 3 million homes in the OVC footprint. There's 12 million homes in the A-Sun footprint. And so it gives us the opportunity to fly to Gov in great places like Huntsville and in Georgia, and Atlanta, Florida, Jacksonville, that kind of thing. And so we're really excited about the opportunity. So that's what led to the move. And the A-Sun had a goal of wanting to be kind of the SEC of FCS football and grow a great model for that. And we believed in the model that they had. And really that was not. The OVC was more basketball focused. And we wanted to be in a conference that really wanted to support both of them. So we really made that. That's why we made the move.
Now you get ready to take on Alabama coming up this Saturday. And just what's the impact of a game like this for Austin Peay, not just for this football program, but for your entire athletic department?
Well, the great thing about this is the impact for the university is visibility. Obviously, going down and playing a game on the SEC, SEC Network, SEC Network Plus. There's so many, the great crowd, the energy that'll be down there. But, financially, it's a huge thing for our athletics department, too. This year we played 2 guarantee games, if you would call them that. And with that, we're pretty much able to fund football. And so the rest of our budget gets to be spent on our 15 other varsity sports, and those guys get a great opportunity. So I think people don't understand those kind of impacts that it has. So we can grow our football brand and our football program through games like this, and our guys get exposure on a national level. And then we also get to take care of volleyball and tennis and soccer and everything else. So it's kind of the best of both worlds for us.
What's going to be like for you to head back to Bryant-Denny Stadium? You had a long time on Philip Fulmer's staff at Tennessee. I met some tough memories, but some good memories for you, especially probably that 5 overtime game in 2003.
Oh my gosh, that was one of the, it still may rank as, if there wasn't the 98 Florida game, that probably would rank as probably my best, or my favorite game at Tennessee. Just an unbelievable matchup, unbelievable game. There's some good memories there, but there's some bad ones. I remember Coach Saban kicking, and Ron Middleton was the special teams coordinator who I ended up working with at Duke. Actually, the next year, they opened up the game versus with an onside kick to start the game, got the ball, scored like the next play, I believe, and then it was rammer jammer all day that day, so I tried not to remember that one, but you can see I can pretty much remember everything that happened there. But being back in the SEC excites me. I mean, just the passion. I'm looking forward to getting there. With the team and get there a little early, and I'm going to go be a fan a little bit and watch some of the traditions that make the SEC special and that make the University of Alabama special. It's not the third Saturday in October, but it will do for the Governors and the Tide.
And also, you mentioned your time at Duke working with Coach Cutcliffe, who's an Alabama graduate and was on Coach Bryant's staff as well. Just what you learned about his love for Alabama throughout the years and what his time here in Tuscaloosa meant to him.
I know he loves it. I mean, he is a historian, a student of the game, worked for him. He quoted Coach Bryant, if not 3 times a week, more, with something he learned or a lesson that he learned while he was at Alabama. I remember going back with him. He spoke at one of Coach Saban's clinics, some spring clinics, and we went back. We flew over, and he spent the first 3 hours of our visit before we met with Coach Saban, and he did his speech, taking us around campus, showing us where he lived in the dorm, showing us where the locker room was back then. I think it was somewhere near the Coliseum or something, or in the Coliseum even. I'm not exactly sure, but he was showing us all those historic moments, and just to see his eyes light up. And I think the favorite thing he did was go over, and forgive me for not knowing the names of all these areas, but where all the statues of the championship coaches are, and took a picture next to, he wanted me to take a picture of him next to Coach Bryant. That meant so much to him, and I know he keeps that picture. So he has a great love for his experiences and his times at Alabama.
Great man. David Cutcliffe now working with the SEC. Well, Gerald Harrison, we're thrilled you're working with Austin Peay. Congratulations on your success as the director of athletics there. And we look forward to hosting you guys coming up on Saturday, Alabama against Austin Peay. But thank you for your time with us today on the Crimson Tide Sports Network.
Thank you, guys. And as always, let's go Peay.
Fun conversation with Gerald Harrison. He's, of course, the director of athletics for Austin Peay, and their radio broadcaster is Brian Rives. We always have the other booth, spotlight the other broadcaster that is calling the ball game, as well as, of course, our coverage for the Crimson Tide. Brian Rives calls the game for Austin Peay, and he joins us now to give us a really detailed scouting report on the Governors as we get set for Saturday at 11 a.m. Alabama against Austin Peay at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Brian, it's great to have you join us. What can you tell us about the Governors as we get set for Alabama against Austin Peay?
Well, Roger, first, thank you for the invite. Glad to be with you. Looking forward to getting to Tuscaloosa on Saturday. This is the Governors team, quite honestly, that has ended their FCS schedule, and now we are waiting the powers that be to hopefully give us a playoff berth. 7-1 in FCS play, a big loss in the second half to Central Arkansas, kind of the haunting of this team right now. But this is a team going into Saturday that is really looking to Sunday when the FCS schedule and the FCS playoffs are announced, not looking past Alabama by any means, but their priorities are to make that FCS playoff run and try to make another push as we did to the third round in 2019.
Yeah, you mentioned 7-1 in FCS play, 7-3 overall. If you could just kind of game by game, take us through the journey of this team for Scotty Walden.
Sure. Opened up at Western Kentucky. A couple of late turnovers really kind of doomed us there, but it was competitive. We were in that game the entire way. Got home and played 2 smaller schools, got shutouts in both those contests, and our defense really kind of came together while our offense was still working around. Mike DeLillo is our starting quarterback. transferred into us as a grad transfer. So he was still learning the offense, quite honestly. So getting those couple of home games early where the defense really stood out, allowed the offense to come together, find the chemistry between DeLillo and the wideouts, find the chemistry between this three-man running back rotation. Got into ASUN play, a huge win over Eastern Kentucky, a comeback win in the second half that kind of propelled us. The next week we'd go to Central Arkansas, play them to a draw in the first half, and unfortunately in the second half, the first 8 minutes of the second half, they returned a kick for a touchdown. We gave them a short field on an interception that they scored, and then we turned it over again on a 3-and-out, punt to them, and they marched down and drive. So just like that, a 21-point swing to start the second half. And since then, the Governors have been on a nice run, balanced offensively. We could run the football when we need to. Opportunistic in the pass game, can strike for the big play or just chunk it down if we need to. So there's been better chemistry. The one black spot, if you will, in the second half of the season has been the loss to Jacksonville State. Played them to a draw just like Central Arkansas in the first half. But then we know the Gamecocks. You guys know them very well in the state of Alabama. Jacksonville State in the second half, they showed their depth where they could go to the second line guy, third line guy, and didn't really drop off in level of play, and their depth showed and ultimately led them to a win. Governors come off a couple of wins now against a rival in Murray State just last Saturday, go to Kennesaw State and get the win up there in Kennesaw, Georgia. So the FCS schedule is through, but this is a team that has, as the season has gone, you've seen them progress and get better and better on both sides of the football.
And what can you tell us about your head coach, Scotty Walden? Still a very young head coach, but it seems like he's already got a wealth of experience and has done wonders already in Clarksville.
Yeah, 30-year-old head coach. When the radio guy is older than a head coach, it usually tells you a little something. But, comes to us. He was at Southern Miss before he came to Austin Peay. Had bounced around the D3 level down in Texas as well. He is the epitome of a player's coach. Some people don't like that title. Some people do like that title. Scotty is going to get in the locker room. Scotty's going to go sit down in a locker with a guy who's had a great day or had a bad day. And he'll talk to him. And he'll coach him up. But he's also going to be there when they need it. When Scotty first came on, there was some fluctuation with the roster, and he had to really kind of re-recruit the squad that was going to stay here. And he developed some great friendships, and I think those have stuck and done him very well, benefiting him moving forward. But he's abundant with energy. There's a joke going around on Twitter that he doesn't drink coffee. I can attest he does not drink coffee. There is some energy drinks in there, but he's just one of those guys that he loves this game and he loves these guys. And you see it come out on the field, whether it's a Thursday night or a Saturday afternoon. He wants the best for the guys that are wearing red, white, and black for Austin Peay State University, and he's going to give everything he can to make sure they get that.
And for our fans who may be hearing of Austin Peay and getting to see this football team for the first time, just what can you tell us about the rise of Austin Peay athletics over the last few years under the leadership of Gerald Harrison?
Well, first off, I'll tell you that when I started calling radio, I'd been kind of in your role, Roger, hosting Coach's Show, being on the sideline, doing some extra, and it took over as play-by-play voice in 2015. It took me 2 years to call a victory. We had the nation's longest losing streak through those mid-teens, got up to 31 games. But luckily, with the resurgence, started really in 2016 with a great recruiting class, moved forward. Missed the playoffs in 2018, and that really heartbroke a lot of Governor fans. 2019 made a fantastic run to the quarterfinal round before falling to Montana State. Gerald Harrison has come in and, as you mentioned him, as the athletic director, and just infused the entire athletic department, not just the football program. Football is showing the benefits early now, as we see, but you look at this, we've just made the move from the Ohio Valley Conference to the ASUN Conference. That is a move strategic for us for first and foremost, placement on the map, getting the Governor brand out in a larger scale than a more compact area, having new competition, a rise up in competition, quite honestly. So Harrison has made sure that everyone in the athletic department gets focused on that competition level. And more importantly, he's put the emphasis back on the student athlete. It is fun to come to Austin Peay. It's fun to have new facilities, new areas to work in, to study in, to locker room areas or just relaxation areas. There's been an emphasis on the student athlete more than ever before. I'm an alumni of Austin Peay State University, and I have seen the change from non-scholarship football to we did away with football for about a 5-year period, brought it back. Now we're back full scholarship on the FCS level. So to see where ebbed and flowed, and now where we are still, the tide is very high at Austin Peay, and it's been a fun ride to be a part of.
This Saturday, we have the first ever meeting between Alabama and Austin Peay in football. We're really excited for it at Bryant-Denny Stadium. And Brian, just thank you so much for joining us, giving us perspective on Austin Peay and the season the Governors have had. We look forward to having you here. Thank you.
Roger, thank you for the invite. Appreciate it. I hope the Crimson Tide, and I know they'll treat us well. And we'll see you Saturday in Tuscaloosa.
Really appreciate the time of Brian Rives as well as Gerald Harrison from Austin Peay helping us get set for Saturday football between the Tide and the Governors. That's what's coming up on Saturday, but before that, we still have a lot coming up here on campus of the University of Alabama and specifically on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. It is time for the Wickles Weekend Update brought to you by Wickles Pickles. They are wickedly delicious. Find out more at WicklesPickles.com. Let's take a look at what's coming up across the network thanks to our friends at Wickles. Well, even later tonight, we're going to be busy here on the network as we will have at 6:30 p.m. Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show from Baumhower's Victory Grill in Tuscaloosa. Then on Friday, of course, we'll recap everything that's happened on the week with the This Week on the Crimson Tide Sports Network podcast. And then later on, we will have Alabama men's basketball against Jacksonville State. Airtime will be at 7 for the tip-off at 8 p.m. at Coleman Coliseum. Then again, a few hours later, it'll be an 8 a.m. airtime on Saturday for the Crimson Tide against the Austin Peay Governors. The kickoff at 11 o'clock. Full radio coverage available across the network. Sunday, we'll talk about it with the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nick Saban, with his weekly television show along with Chris Stewart. And then we'll also have Tide TV This Week, hosted by Kinsey Hughes, as we'll take a look at everything that's coming up across Crimson Tide athletics, talking a lot about soccer as well. Then on Monday, it'll be Alabama women's basketball starting play in the Pink Flamingo Championships in the Bahamas, taking on the Utah Utes at 1:30. And then we will also have Crimson Tide Rewind coming up at 6 p.m. from Baumhower's Victory Grill in Vestavia Hills. So busy time coming up, and it's not listed on our Wickles Weekend Update since we don't have a CTSN broadcast of it, but do want to remind you as well, Friday, Alabama soccer at 6 p.m. against Portland, and if Alabama wins that matchup, they would play the winner of UC Irvine versus Brown on Sunday at 1 o'clock. So certainly hope you can cheer on the Crimson Tide. Those broadcasts are available on ESPN+. Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Don't miss out on your chance to experience the energy and the excitement of the Great American Race. That's February 19th, 2023. Get your tickets today for the Daytona 500 at Daytona500.com. It's going to wrap up this busy edition on this Thursday of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, and a couple of programming notes for this show moving forward. Next week, with the Thanksgiving holiday coming up, we will only have one edition of the show. That'll be Tuesday at 2 p.m. here on the CTSN social media channels. And then after that, now that we're starting to move past our football week programming, we will go to just once a week with this show coming up Thursdays at 2 p.m. But we're going to have that coming up all throughout basketball season, into baseball and softball season, even through the summer as well with some of our special summer shows. So we're going to still be here, of course, for Crimson Drive, just not every Tuesday and Thursday like we have had before. Next week, again, Tuesday at 2 o'clock. Then after that, Thursdays at 2 o'clock, moving forward for Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Special thanks to all the guests we've had today from the Air Force, Staff Sergeant Sarah Neal, the recipient of the Legendary Service Award from UA Online. We appreciate as well Brian Branch from the Alabama football team. Of course, our own Chris Stewart, as well as our guest from Austin Peay State University, Gerald Harrison and Brian Rives. We also thank as well Ethan Carabin, our video producer, putting this entire show together. And thanks to all of you for watching. Plenty to enjoy this weekend coming up for Crimson Tide Athletics, and we hope to see you there at all the ball games that are coming up here in Tuscaloosa. Till then, have a great rest of your Thursday. So long, and roll Tide.